Ryan, very good to have you on here, sir. Thank you so much.
Jacob, thanks for asking me.
Starting from the beginning here with you, who were some bands or artists that really grabbed your attention early on when you began to become interested in music?
Early on for me, maybe predating. I can start at the very beginning. My mother gave me a copy. My first record was a copy of Band of Gypsies by Jimi Hendrix,
Ah,
which had a pretty profound impact on me. Uh, it was that in the Soft Parade by The Doors that she gave me her copies, amongst some other things, but those really stuck out to me. As far as music I bought on my own, I mean, just there was a cassette I bought an LP. Actually, I bought an LP and a cassette the same day. It was an LP of Seven and the Ragged Tigers by Duran Duran. This was probably 1985, 86. I can't remember. And then a cassette copy of John Williams' greatest hit, the film composer.
hmm.
Out of Africa, Indiana Jones, Jaws, Star Wars, all this kind of stuff. And that had a really big impact on me. And I think subconsciously probably still has a big impact on me today, as far as, thinking of music sort of filmically, which a lot of people say my music tends to have this kind of belongs in a scoring capacity or something like that. So instrumental music, it's really set a tone for me because I've often butted up against a lot of walls with instrumental. Everyone, oh, you need to sing, you need to do this, and if it was up to me, there'd be no singing. But and just from then, it was hearing punk rock music. I have an older sister who was deeply sort of into punk music in the 80s and 90s, or going into the early 90s, and that had a big impact on me. Hearing the Ramones and Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains, Black Flag, stuff like that, all the kind of big bands. And then from there, that's
Right.
where it went. Yeah.
Going back to the Doors, do you do you have a specific song that stands out to you? Maybe it's not even on Soft Parade, but just out of the whole discography of their music, is there one that particularly stands out?
I really like Moonlight Drive, the song
Oh,
Moonlight Drive by the Doors. I think that's a really good song.
yeah,
It's funny. Everybody hates the Doors, or people say they hate the Doors, but I think what they mean is they don't like Jim Morrison. And I think that's, it's a cult of personality thing. So, but
right, right. Do you think that there was something fishy about his death?
I think it did too many drugs. A selfishiness, maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, I've read a little bit about it. I've seen the movie, uh, actually with my mom. I saw the movie in the theater. Uh, I don't know. It's like, what do you do? A guy like that dies. It's not just like, well, let's call an ambulance. I guess there's probably a lot of when there's a lot of people that are involved in drugs, especially then people get scared to report things,
Mm,
because they themselves are on drugs. They themselves are probably carrying. They don't want to call the cops.
they're fishy. Yeah.
It looks fishy.
These early influences on you really have still have some sort of an impact on the music that you're creating today.
Yeah, of course. I mean, people are like sponges. We absorb stuff, and it really doesn't disappear. It just gets a little less damp. And I
That's a
think,
good way to put it. I like that.
yeah, so I think that that's really what I think everything I've heard in my entire life has had some impact on what I've made. I would imagine the same for everybody. We're not made of metal. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of absorb the universe as it comes to us.
Do you still find yourself going back every once in a while and checking out the whether it be a soundtrack to a movie or Jimi Hendrix or The Doors or any of these sort of things, Black Flag?
Oh, all the time. I mean, not really things like Black Flag, but yeah, I mean, I listen to the Doors regularly. Jimi Hendrix, still love Hendrix. I mean, there's always some new Hendrix recording, or like a video coming, or like some film that had been tucked away. Like there was that Hawaii thing that just came out with um, Billy Cox and Mitch Mitchell. Just, I mean, yeah, it's great music because it's been able to transcend time. So
Yeah.
yeah, and they also just, I think people turn back to things because they just feel comfortable.
Speaking on that, that comfortability of listening to something that you've already listened to, when you turn on maybe not those artists for instance, but maybe other artists music, do you turn it on because you know exactly what you're going to listen to, or do you turn it on to try to get something new out of a song that you've already heard before?
I think a combination of both.
Mhm.
Um, I think if you're paying attention, you can always hear some detail. There's always some minute, especially if you're someone who makes recordings or uh, is constantly trying to make things. It's like you are kind of cued into how things were made, and you start to details, and every week, if you're recording music, you tried a new compressor, you tried a new something, and you just start to wonder, like, I wonder what they were using on this recording, and you're listening for that. But I mean, also, I do think, like I said, I think there's like a certain comfort in things that are deeply familiar, that have had like a long impact on you. You can come, it's like a long awaited friend or something.
Do you want people that listen to your music to continuously find something new that they haven't heard before or paid attention to before with each listen?
I don't want anybody to do anything. Um, but people tell me that they experience that. People are always telling me that there's a lot of detail in my music that is sort of slightly obscure, that repeated listens will draw. I don't know how long that can last, you know. But I don't really have an intention for what people will get from my music. Once I've made it and I've made it available to anybody to listen to, it's kind of out of my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm very conscious of that.
Is there something that you're seeking from other people's music that you're trying to take away as a listener rather than a maker of music?
Um, I'd like to feel a bit of fascination. I like to. That's always what sort of compelled me about music. The music that I've loved is that it's always felt a little bit f coming from a far off place, or some place that I don't that isn't readily recognizable to me. I find that to be very appealing. It could be in a voice, it could be instrumentation, it could be an arrangement, it could be anything. But generally speaking, yeah, I like to what I want to hear out of music is something that feels unfamiliar to me.
That's a good answer. I like that. Ryan, you're coming with good answers, and I'm trying to stump you here. I got him this time. No way, not you. You're a
Oh,
consummate professional.
we got another 45 minutes, it looks like, so let's see what happens.
Is the music that you make today more inspired by the music that you enjoy, or is it a response to the in response to the music that you enjoy, or again, is it a bit of both?
I'd have to say it's a bit of both. I mean, there's not really any other way that it can be. My mind isn't a steel trap. I keep going to the metal and
Sponge.
tissue sort of comparison, because I just feel like there's no way you can avoid that. I've never consciously said there's only. Well, that's not true. There's only been a few small instances ever in at least my making this music that I've ever thought, there's an element to something that I would like to incorporate from someone else's music. Generally, I'm just kind of on this like id highway, trying to just things are just coming to me, and I'm just building, and I'm not often thinking about, well, there's this great thing that someone else has done. I would love to do that. I actually think that's kind of an interesting thing, because I feel like people have a difficult time expressing what it is that they like about something they've experienced, and so often what they'll do is say, oh, I really love this, it's like this. I really love your guitar playing, it's like Bo Diddley's. you know I've personally tried to avoid that when I talk to people, like, oh, I really love your new album. It sounds like so and so's third album. I wouldn't say that to someone. I try to find a way to, and I think of making music similarly, where I'm not really trying to reference anything consciously, but I think it's almost impossible not to.
I can see the difficulty in that. When did you start playing music? When did that begin for you?
I started playing music, or I picked up an instrument probably when I was about 13. So it's a long, long time ago. And yeah, I didn't really have a gravitational pull towards playing music. It just sort of happened. Someone had a guitar laying around. I picked it up, had no idea what I was doing, but I was immediately, um, like I said, that fascination. I felt this kind of bizarre sort of fascination to figure out how to make this thing work for me. And and I think, yeah, so it must have been then. But I mean, I became captivated with music at the time of hearing the first music that I mentioned previously. So
Yeah.
uh, that's the same as playing music. But yeah.
So at some level, did it come naturally to you, or was it always something that you had to work towards, even after coming into it naturally?
I picked up on it pretty quickly. I'm completely self-taught. I took one music lesson, and I found that to be a really, really terrible experience. And that doesn't mean that learning music is a bad idea, but I would say that my experience at the time, the person that was teaching me, I took a bass guitar lesson, and I had a horrible teacher who was really condescending. You always hear these stories of people. I wanted to learn. I brought my guitar to the teacher, and I said I wanted to learn this very simple rock and roll, and they sort of condescended me into believing that what I thought was completely idiotic, and that I had a very similar experience. So yeah, so I took, but I just worked at it. I just played all day, every free moment I had, I played. So it came to me pretty quickly, but it took a long time to sort of develop an identity.
Were you conscious of an identity being formed at that time, or did it kind of just appear?
Not at all. No, I don't think I honestly could say that. No, I was about to say that I don't think that my identity developed until I started making records on my own as Coffin Prick, but I think I've always had like a pretty strong identity. But when I first started playing in those early years, I did not have any identity at all. I would have just played anything that came to me, try to sound like someone else, or it was just exciting to play.
Yeah. Um, can an identity shift throughout a career in music, or a timeline in music, or is it, once it's developed, is it just there and there's no switching it?
Hmm. Theoretically, I think most people don't sort of establish a certain identity at a certain age, and I feel like we don't really go past it, whether it's the way we think or a sense of melody or time. I think I still have a lot of the same things in me that I made, uh, the same sort of identity traits in my music that from when I first started making my first demos. There's still something there, on a 4-track years and years ago. But with any hope, you will change over time, and that will sort of just slowly start to, what's the word I would use for it? Mutate over time. But the DNA is still very similar. So
Yeah.
I would say it changes, but I don't really think that conscious change is in your art is always such a good idea. I think that allowing it to change over time with what you're absorbing, what you're taking in, what you're experiencing, with any hope, those things will have a big impact on what you're doing, and they will just happen naturally. But I think as far as like consciously trying to change, the trajectory of my musical life, I don't think I want to try to do that too much.
If it happens, it happens, sort of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always happening. Unless you're just constantly churning something out, yeah, even then it would happen. But I think it's like a good idea to take a little time between the things you make, to just let new things sort of come up and flourish.
Going back to when you began with music, did you begin with playing with various bands and groups once you started playing with other people, or was it kind of a more of a solo journey?
No, I played with bands exclusively up until about 2020. I did not make my own records or recordings or play my own gigs at all. I pretty much was always playing in someone else's band. I was a member of a band. I was a side musician. When I first started playing, it was just sort of garage bands, people in people's living rooms and stuff like that. Not actual like the sound of garage rock and roll or anything like that. But just, yeah, I mean, just doing kind of things. A band that'll last 3 weeks. You'll write a couple songs, and then someone gets upset, and then it doesn't work anymore. Someone leaves, and so yeah, no, I didn't ever even have the anticipation or interest in making my own music until right around 2020. So I was always playing in bands. Yeah.
Do you think that you would have switched it up if the opposite were true, if you were going on a solo journey up until 2020, do you think that you would be like, okay, now I want to be a part of a band and do something new, uh, irregardless?
I don't know. It's too hypothetical. I imagine I'd probably have a reaction to what I've been doing. I mean, I don't even particularly like making records on my own. It's just circumstantially how things work out. I prefer to play with other musicians, and fortunately, I'm able to do so with a live band. And hopefully, for the next record I make, if I'm able to make one, I will do it with a band. To this point, it's just been me. But I like playing with other musicians. I feel like there's a real alchemical thing that happens when you get together with other musicians, and things just naturally are going to, you're someone's drumming is going to affect the bass player is affecting the guitar player, the just things happen when you're with other people that will not happen on your own. And
Right.
there's a madness to making records on your own that I sometimes find it's hard to come back from. So yeah, I like playing with other. It's my preference to play with other musicians as much as possible. It's like having a conversation. It's very helpful.
Yeah. Do you look at music in general as a communal thing, something that is to be shared with other people through doing it?
I think so. I think that's the purpose, to communicate. I mean, that's why we do anything, whether it's communicating our own ego, whether it's communicating our need to be accepted, whether it's communicating our own desire to, you know, in the world, or whatever it is, to leave something behind. Um, I think it's all about communication. What it is exactly you're communicating, you know, that changes with time.
Uh, you're not wrong, and I can't prove you wrong. So,
Good.
you know,
People try. Yeah.
um, so when you were starting out, playing in these various bands and whatnot, was that in Chicago? Was that
No, that was in
okay?
Miami, Florida.
Oh, very nice. Okay. What was
That's
the music scene down there like at that time?
when I, well, it was pretty incredible, actually. Miami is not, it's very geographically cut off from the rest of the country. And so there's a difficulty. I think one thing that always kind of allows a lot of music sort of worlds to flourish is that they can see that other people are doing it somewhere else, and they can, there's acts touring coming through a town, maybe a group from that town gets to open for a bigger group and get exposed to a different audience. Whereas it felt like it was like this kind of almost like sort of homogenized world. There wasn't a big influx of musicians coming from other places in, at least as far as like the underground kind of world I was in. So it was pretty incredible because everybody was sort of playing with one another, and there weren't these kind of stylistic restrictions that seem to happen in big cities. This band sounds like that band, so they play together. It was very disparate, and so it was pretty incredible, actually, I gotta say. And I really I would say that the music world there was, looking back at the time, it felt pretty desperate, and now looking back at it, I think it was totally incredible. And there was a lot of really cool thinkers in my sphere.
Is it is it safe to say that that period within music for you had a large impact on your music moving forward?
No, maybe just my attitude about. I think when you come from a place like that, at least for me, I would imagine you wouldn't really forget what it was like. So I don't really have that chip on my shoulder about, for me, it's like, what a cool thing if I sort of experience it. But going to a different town, or Los Angeles, where I live now. Are you in Los Angeles?
Orange County.
Orange County.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very different city. It's a city that has a history that informs what's happening today. That is very different from anything I've previous, like where I grew up, or so or even in Chicago. So I think that I only think of it in terms of I'm not really thinking too much about my past, but I only think of it in terms of it was a great place to develop, but I don't think it really has much to do with what I'm doing now
Mm.
consciously.
Did you move to Chicago from Miami? Was that kind of
I
the
did.
path
I
that you
was
took?
here. I was here for about like 9 months before then, and then my first a girlfriend of mine was in Chicago, and she had sort of given me an ultimatum and said, "You've got to come here." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'm ready to do it." And so then I went to Chicago. Kind of pretty. I'd played there because I was already touring from the time I was living in Miami. I had joined a band that did a lot of touring in a sort of do it yourself kind of circuit, punk rock sort of circuit. And so I'd been there and I knew that it was okay. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to go. So I wound up going to Chicago and I lived there for about 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, if you had just stayed in Los Angeles, um, do you think that that would have changed your mindset on music or the music that you're making now?
Impossible to tell, but probably, yeah, I think I would be a very different person. I would say Chicago, however, has a very conscious, my time in Chicago has a very conscious effect on what my life has become, for sure. I made some of my closest friends there, friendships that endure to this day. Did a lot of playing with a lot of people. Got to experience a lot of really incredible people making things in a it's kind of like when people talk about the old days, and oh, there was bands, we were living cheaply. Everyone was living cheaply. When I moved there, I had a one-bedroom apartment that was $375 a month, and by the time I left, I lived in a giant two-bedroom apartment that was $900, where I could record, and so you could really spend a lot of time going to gigs, playing with people. Bands would get together, people would get together just to play, just to try things because you could afford to. I think in Los Angeles was very cheap then. Now Los Angeles is a cesspool as far as money goes, and it's awful. So I don't know what would have become, but I would say that my time in Chicago was super informative because I just got to, the floodgates were open. I could spend so much time with so many different musicians, and I think that my time there was massively impactful.
Now, it was in uh Chicago that Coffin Pricks, which was the kind of the another iteration of what you're doing now with Coffin Prick began, yes?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah,
Um, yeah, when did that get started? What year are we kind of talking about of Coffin Pricks? Coffin Prick rather.
I want to say 2000. Well, Coffin Pricks was 2012. I had been playing in one band. I mean, I've been playing in a bunch of bands, but one of the bands I'd been playing in was this band called Red Eyed Legends, with a guy named Paul and Kiki Yablon and a guy named Chris Thompson, who Chris was sort of a well-known figure. He had been in a lot of bands that people knew, a band called Circus Lupus, a band called the Monorchid, Skull Control. He played bass in Unrest and Ignition, and I think an early version of a band called Soulside. It's kind of like these Washington, D.C. bands. But he had moved to Chicago, and we were playing in this group together. I was the bass player, and he that band split up, not too acrimoniously. It just sort of happened, and I really loved his singing. I thought he had a cool voice. I thought he wrote some very interesting words, and I had already been sort of envisioning this group that I would sort of create that would be kind of an umbrella from which I could do a lot of different projects. And that was what Coffin Prick was supposed to be. Like there would just be, it could be anything. And I think I've kind of made good on that now as I move forward. But at the time, really all that came from it was Coffin Pricks because I wanted to make sort of high energy music that Chris could sing, which, at the time, I don't know, I was thinking of some, the energy of a band like The Damned or something like that, or some kind of yeah, just really really kind of high energy guitar music. and Chris was the right person for it. So I just developed the Coffin Pricks thing, and I just was writing music all the time for it, just constantly writing. And that's really how that was born.
Do you feel like there are certain pockets of time that a lot of things just kind of gush out idea wise, and then there's sometimes that nothing comes out, or is it there always something to be released musically or artistically?
It ebbs and flows, but I would say there's more of just these bursts. I'm always working on something, whether it's something that's consequential or not, depends on how strongly I feel about it. A lot of things will sit around for a while. My records, for instance, generally take me about, at least the past two I've made, generally take me about a year and a half. And then when I'm done with them, I find it very difficult to jump back into just writing with any kind of, like, I don't feel very prolific. I don't feel like it's just pouring out of me all the time. The ideas are there, but it can take a lot out of you, especially if you're making writing and recording records of your own. I feel like it can be very draining.
Is there a way to recharge, or have you found a way to recharge faster?
It just seems to happen naturally. I'm not really sure. Uh, there's no tried and true formula. It just seems to just kind of happen. Like right around now, I'm starting to get back into writing again. And so it's usually about like 5 months. I mean, it really wipes you out, because not only have you finished making this record, but now you're starting to deal with these sort of logistical points with a record label, hopefully, or getting a release out or whatever, that can not usurp, but can take up a lot of the energy that you could devote to making things. And that's fine. That's part of the process. You're making a something that hopefully you'll be able to present to the world, that that's the vehicle for that particular batch of music.
Mm.
But no, generally speaking, I'm always working on something. Every day I'm working on something, not as concentrated as I would be if I were, usually what happens, I'll start to make something that feels so strongly that it'll be the catalyst for me to start thinking, okay, now I'm working towards making a full record or a body of work that could become one thing. So, but it usually takes me about 5 or 6 months after I finish something to really feel like uh, I can jump back in. And that actually makes me feel a little crazy, because I feel like I want to, but I just can't.
So Coffin Pricks it happens in Chicago, and what is the duration of the timeline spanning from beginning to the ending of that group?
It was really only about 3 years, 2012 to about 2015, I think. Uh,
Mhm.
and that ended fairly acrimoniously, unfortunately. We have all since patched that up, because we had a record come out of the remaining recordings. There was an interest, and someone asked if they could put it out, and we said yeah. So I had to go back and remix everything and open up the session, and then obviously get in touch with the group and say, like, are you comfortable with you know doing this with me doing this? Are you? I mean, it was actually through the drummer Jeff Rice that the label had come into the picture, uh, to to ask us to do this sort of release. And that kind of reconnected us, Chris and myself in particular. Now we are speaking fairly regularly, which is nice. So yeah, it was a short period of time. Didn't end very well. I was already I was at the time I was still playing with a bunch of people. So it wasn't like this happened and I was like, now what am I going to do? I had other things to do. I was playing in a group called the Cairo Gang for quite a bit of time, concurrently and beyond that. So I had plenty to do, in other projects. So when that ended, it was just it was actually kind of a relief, frankly. That 3 years was a bit tumultuous.
Do you feel like that feeling was mutual?
Yeah,
Um,
I think so. I mean, it's there's a certain burden that comes with being the person who's writing everything, and there wasn't a lot of friction there, but I think if you're the person who's writing the majority of the music, they are contributing. I never really told Jeff what to play on drums. We had a bass player who joined us for the live gigs, but I played the bass and the electric guitars on the record. Um, I have a different preciousness than maybe someone else might. they might view it. And so for me, it's like I'm really detail oriented, so I'm thinking about all these things that other people aren't talking about and or aren't thinking about. And when you get to the point where people are feeling unhappy with how precious you're being about certain aspects of the music, it can really breed this discontent that is not good in a group. So we got into that point. Chris was having some things happen that were, you know, in his personal life that were not that good, and it was really just there's no way we could have gone on. We people actually liked the music; it was doing fairly well in the region, but we never really toured the U.S. or anything like that. So I think everyone was happy it was done. I think it was a relief. I think it was starting to become a stress. And so I can't speak for them, but my feeling is that they were probably pretty happy that it was done.
And this had wrapped in 2015 is what you said, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Um, did you know at that point that you would return to the idea of that name at least to repurpose that into um another project?
I'd always intended to. I always thought I would come back to it, but and it was always in the back of my mind, but I didn't really do it. I had been distracted by so many other things that I well, okay. The acrimony that existed from that one thing kind of left a very poor taste in my mouth about the whole thing, even though it was sort of my conception. And I must say, the name Coffin Pricks, Coffin Prick, it means nothing. So, because I feel people ask me about all this all the time, and I don't know if you were going to ask me at any point, but I would say that the name it's purely phonetic. There were two words that sounded really kind of phonetically pleasing together, even though it sort of implies like kind of something, but it really means nothing. Um, but uh, but yeah, I always thought I'd return to it. But at the time, I was happy to have the distance from it. It didn't quite have the juice behind it that I hoped that it would in my mind. I was sort of distracted by doing um, life things and returning to other music things that were where I took kind of a secondary position.
Now, did this renaissance of the project or this new page within the project occur when you had moved back to Los Angeles?
No, not at all. It actually didn't come back to me until right around the time of because when I moved here, I was still playing. I moved here because the Cairo Gang was here, which is the group that I was playing with, and Emmett, who's sort of the band leader, or he is the band leader, said, you know, and I was playing with him, and I was playing with a guy named Michael. I was playing with a bunch of people, and it seemed like it just wasn't making sense for me to go back and forth all the time, and I was not very happy in Chicago. It was freezing. I was drunk all the time. I had gone through like a terrible disillusion of a relationship, and I was ready to split. I actually always had a kind of a bad feeling about Los Angeles. Um, but I remember sitting there. I had recorded a song with Emmett and the musician Ty Siegel at his studio, and we were just kind of sitting around at this bar in the Eagle Rock area, and they had gone inside to get a drink or something like that, and I was just sitting there staring off into the sky, and I thought, you know, I think I could move back here, and it made a lot of sense. I think I could be here, and I think it could work, and I was just running from something. So at the time, I was not even thinking about doing my own music. People through the years have always pestered me about doing my own music. That's what you should be doing. That's what you should be doing. But I never really felt that comfortable doing that. I didn't really want to do that. So when I came back to Los Angeles and I moved here, I was just playing. I was working. We had a bunch of touring coming up. The Cairo Gang fell apart. Then I wound up playing with tons of people here otherwise. Um, and it wasn't until the sort of lockdown period of 2020, lockdown is such a gross word, until the time we really couldn't do very much because of the pandemic. Lockdown, it just sounds so gross, like lockdown, like
It
we're
has
just
a yeah, it has a connotation to it.
yeah, it's weird. I mean, we're just being socially conscious and not going out and getting people sick. I was just at home and I had a sort of a mystery injury. I had some personal stuff happening and I couldn't really do very much. And I just had resolved myself to buying a computer. I never really recorded on a computer or anything like that. Buying a computer and then immediately jumping into recording. And it was just an impulse. Like I wasn't even really thinking about it. And that's really it. It took from 2015 to 2020 for me to even revisit the idea. And that happened just during that period of time.
Was it during that period of time when you just on that impulse, sort of the first wave of the impulse, that you realized that you wanted to shift directions with the sound, or did you already have some sort of floating idea of what you wanted to do with it before?
I had no idea. I had no idea. The idea took shape over time as I started to make more and more music. I actually didn't want to, I didn't even know I was making a record until a record label, someone who ran a record label approached me and said, I'd like to hear what you're working on. I heard you're working on music. I said, yeah, sure. I passed it to them and they said, we'd love to put this record out. And then only then did I start to think, I think I'm making a record, but I had not really consciously thought I'm making a record. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to make a record, because there's nothing more humiliating than making a record on your own and then sending it around to a bunch of labels and having no one respond to you or people reject you or whatever it is. So to have that experience right off the bat was really great because I didn't have to search for a record label. And the label at the time, which, it wouldn't have been a good fit in the end. Um, the record label at the time uh, provided me with an instant audience for the music that I didn't have to work that hard for. And that would have been easy. But they wound up folding um, just before the record would have essentially been off to the pressing plant. So that I was kind of stuck there. But I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
No, you are. You give me the background, and I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, aside from the time frame in which you were creating this album, did the move to Los Angeles have any effect on the way it sounded, just in general of being in a new environment?
I'd have to imagine that it did, not consciously, like everything. I don't do anything consciously, really. I struggle with the conscious sort of approach. I mean, I definitely know why I'm doing what I'm doing in the moment that I'm doing it, but as far as like crafting I'm here, so this is why I'm going to do this. It did not really, but I have to imagine Los Angeles has a massive effect on the way that I make things and what I make, whether good or bad.
Did that in hindsight, do you believe maybe again going back to subconsciousness or subconsciously, that that 5 year period in between the ending of the first chapter and the beginning of the second, if you will, that kind of lent itself for these ideas to formulate of what that first album ended up being?
Again, not consciously, but there's no way that I could say that it didn't. It absolutely must have. I think everything that I had some pretty massive life changes that I don't really want to get into. That definitely, yeah. I think my time at that particular moment in my life at that time, living here in Los Angeles, was absolutely crucial to the development of what I had done at that time.
Hmm.
But it definitely wasn't. It wasn't that I had consciously said because I'm here, this is going to happen. But
Yeah.
looking back at it, I can say, yeah, that's absolutely what happened for sure.
And this first release was Laughing, correct? That's the release that we're referring to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any apprehension about releasing that album, or I mean, because of the kind of the push of that label, were you kind of just like, all right, we'll just see what happens with this?
None at all. I mean, at the time, it didn't feel like there was any reason not to. Um, I wound up finding a label that was through Emmett Kelly, our old friend Ryan Davis, who was in. We knew him in Louisville, Kentucky, but he now lives in Indiana, but which is very close. The borders, very. He when things folded with the other label, Emmett passed it to Ryan. Ryan was immediate. I remember his exact words. I still think it's so funny. He said, he said to Emmett, "I really wish you hadn't sent me this record because I don't have money to put it out and I love it too much not to." So I thought that was really amazing. And I don't really care about a record label. I don't really care who puts my records out necessarily. I just hope that whoever I'm going to be involved with is going to be above board and there's not going to be any sliminess. And Ryan proved that to be absolutely the case. And I was so happy to do it. I had zero apprehension about releasing it.
Also, temporal drift now. Also, same
Same,
thing, right?
same feeling.
Okay.
I'm so grateful to those, to Patrick and Yosuke at Temporal Drift. Are you familiar with the label?
No, but who'd you say? What was that name? Patrick what?
Patrick and Yosuke,
In
two,
Yosuke.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um,
No, this kind of just came across my desk recently though, but I do like what they've been doing. Yeah.
amazing record label. I'm very happy to be involved with them. Same thing. Yeah. I don't do things with people that I don't have a personal affinity towards. I'm not interested. I don't need to make records. There's no money in it. So you might as well enjoy what you're doing. If not, you're making a devil's bargain.
Um, has the way that you continue to make music, from when you began creating music to now changed immensely? Or is there certain tweaks here and there that have happened along the way that has changed the course either slightly or drastically?
I think it's changed immensely because there's no way it couldn't have. Everything I learned along the way. It's like I often lament this, it's like when you first pick up an instrument and you don't really know what you're doing, you sort of make the best, someone could say it's a primitive approach, but you often have the best ideas because you don't really know what you're doing and you're working strictly on impulse and feeling and you haven't developed. So, but through the years of playing with all these different people and picking up bits and pieces from different people, it has changed so much year to year, week to week, day to day, that by the time I reached even this new record from the last one, I would say that my everything about the way I make music has changed. I think my sense of melody, my sense of self in the music is still intact, but as far as like my approach, my writing, I think it's changed unconsciously quite a bit.
Are you constantly looking to produce something different with each album, or is it just a natural, oh well, things have changed because of X, Y, and Z throughout throughout releases?
No, I'm not consciously doing anything. It's just I just trust that it will happen. There's no, I'm definitely not. I'm not trying to say anything. It just happens. I hope that most people, it's good to have chop a path in front of you. But I got to say, for me, what works best is just trusting in that whatever I'm going to make is the thing that I have to say at the time.
Does inspiration change for you ever when it comes to music? Or are there some tenets that have persisted throughout music that is kind of pushing you to engage in creating something new?
Yeah, I think the answer applies. The same answer applies. Yeah, I think it's always changing. I think you're moved by the things that whether you're consciously moved or you're not consciously moved by it, you are moved by it. And so I think that, yeah, it's always changing. I think it's always changing. I think if you're not always changing, then you're not open to the world as it's presenting itself to you.
Is the only way to describe the inspiration is through music, not so much directly through words?
No, I don't think music is the only inspiration at all. I think everything, being alive is the inspiration. Breathing is the inspiration. Looking at my little dog who I live with is my inspiration. Every conversation I have is the inspiration. When someone tries to, I walk all the time. That's what I do. I love walking. Anybody that knows me knows that I do a lot of walking. And anybody that tries to hit me with their car in Los Angeles because they hate pedestrians moves me. It all moves me. Everything moves me. Going to the grocery store moves me.
Either literally or metaphorically.
Yeah, either way, I'm moved. You know. So yeah, I do feel that everything I do has some, it's music is almost sometimes the last thing that is inspirational to me as far as making my own music, like other people's music or recorded music. I think my life, just being alive is the thing that seems to creep in the most. Just being,
Has
just being there.
has that been a constant? just understanding that, or did that take some time to really grab hold of?
That took time. Definitely. I mean, again, just like the music, you hope that through your life that you have developed and you have changed, and experiences have, I mean, there's something great, it's like I have to say, like, the Ramones, I keep coming back to them, or like the Cramps, or like ACDC, or I'm trying to think of other things that are just kind of this monolithically themselves. There's a real beauty to that. Things that are very, they have a vision, they stay true to it. It doesn't really move that much because that's just not what they would do best. um, for me, I'm just open to the world. I'm trying to be open to the world. And when I was younger, I wasn't open to the world. I was open to what I thought was the world, my perception of the world. And as you get older, you hope that you have changed enough to where you start to see the world differently, and you start to see your time as maybe not being as finite as you once thought it did was. And through that, your perception of your existence changes, and hopefully that is reflected in what you make.
Do you think that you would have this same perception of time and life? I guess we could put it to that great of a extent. Would you have come to this conclusion without music, or again, is this an inevitable thing that you think you would have stumbled across?
Well, I think life is meaningless. I'll put it that way. I don't think we have an actual purpose on this earth, but I think there are things that gravitationally pull our spirit in a direction. And I think where I wound up is exactly where I was supposed to be. It may lead to financial ruin. It may lead to insecurity, both financially and personally. It's a great, anybody that makes art has a great point of insecurity that comes with making things that you present to people. But I think that I'm exactly where, whatever guiding principle there is in the universe, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I think it is an inevitability, an unknown inevitability.
With you being exactly where you are now, have you always been where you needed to be? Looking back on it,
No. Well, as far as the universe is concerned, or my conception of it, yes. In as far as what I want to look back at and feel about what it was, no. But that's not up to me.
do you find a large difference between, let's take Laughing, for example, and this new release that's coming out, that we've kind of already hinted at,
Oh,
Loose
this Enchantment.
Enchantment?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that these are just vastly different releases, or is there some sort of through line that has been constant throughout your music?
I think that, as I said earlier, I think a lot of people's personalities remain intact over time, and I think my sense of melody and my sense of sort of absurdity, I think, is very much intact. Uh, I think the music is quite a bit different. It wasn't intentional, but I think that there is a through line, there's a thread, but it's a very thin thread, and hopefully, and that wasn't intentional, and I'm okay with that. Some people have said this record is a little more. I mean, there's the obvious things, which is I had just gotten more into recording, so the record has a different sound. As far as the actual production of the record goes, I mixed this record in a different studio, so that had an impact. I recorded it all here, but I'd gotten more. I don't know. The arrangements are different, but I think as far as like my personality, the thing I love about music, just to add to that, the thing I love about music is to hear, if especially if someone I know has made it, I can really sense their personality and their sense of humor and their sense of sadness, or their sense of happiness, or their sense of joy, their sense of frustration, in a way that I feel I know intimately in their music. And I hope that when people hear this music, that know me feel that same thing, because otherwise I'm just pretending to be someone else, which is fun too. But I think that, yeah, I think there's a thread between this record and the last one, definitely. But I think they both are very, very different records. And I guess time will tell. I'll see who reviews this record, who had review the last record and loved it. Maybe they won't love this record. There's also, this record is the first record Aaron Olson, who plays in my live group, who I've done a lot of music with, played a little bit of synthesizer on a tune on my last record. He's on this record, but I'd say also this record is even different because there's actual acoustic drumming on two songs, which I previously didn't have. There's a couple different singers on this record that sing on a couple songs, so there are differences, but I think it's still mine.
Maybe employing some new tactics or sounds.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right
Yeah,
on. Um, do you find yourself walking away from each release with a different piece of the puzzle, we'll say, in terms of music that's like, oh, I understand that now, and I got that from that, and I received that from that. Do you feel that way at all when it comes to music or putting out an album?
uh, I mean, yeah, I assume that in my life's tapestry, some of the all of the things I have done will put create this puzzle, put this puzzle together. Hopefully someone doesn't walk through and kick it over or whatever and knock all the pieces apart. But yeah, I think it's a part of everything I make. I can't. I'm too zoomed in on it. To use the words of our time. I'm zoomed in on the reality of my current situation. What it'll be like when I sit back and I can't make music. Maybe I have arthritis. I can't touch my instruments. I can't make records anymore. Maybe then I can look at it and say, okay, I see that there's a puzzle here that I've been putting the pieces together on. Right now, I can't say.
Can I say?
You can.
Okay. No, I'm not gonna say. Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on here, sir. Thank you very, very much for your time. But before I let you go, we got some promo to do here.
Sure.
So the new Coffin Prick album, as we had mentioned before, Loose Enchantment is out May 16th via Temporal Drift.
That's great.
That's where that's where it's all gonna be happening.
There
Um,
it is. I have an advanced copy right here.
how does it feel? How does it feel holding that right now, knowing that it is not quite out yet, but it is well within your reach?
I feel delighted to even have it in my life. They actually tricked me with this record. I'll tell you a quick story. Patrick from Temporal Drift reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you mind doing some promo actually of to for another release of theirs by a guy named Hiroshi Yoshimura who's passed away? They're doing some archival releases of this artist, kind of a sound artist, really beautiful stuff. Would you mind filming, going on film, just holding the record and saying, Hiroshi Yoshimura's Flora out now on Temporal Drift. Blah, blah. Yeah, of course, no problem. And he showed up with a copy, and I filmed a quick promo. And then he said, "Oh, reach into the bag. We have a copy of an open one. Maybe we can show everybody the LP." And I said, "Yeah, of course." So I reached into the bag, and lo and behold, there was a copy of my album, which I didn't think would be arriving for another month. So it was a genuine surprise. They filmed it. They put it on their Instagram page, which is at Temporal Drift. I'm gonna give them a plug. Um, and it was a really great surprise. It was really sweet, and there was nothing that was cynical about it, and I loved it. And I thought that that was so cool that they cared enough to do something like that. And so holding this record, it feels like the culmination of a lot of work between a handful of people that really materialized in a beautiful way. And so I feel very happy to have it. And I hope that other people will feel happy about it when they get it. But my work is done here, as far as you know, making it.
That's awesome.
Now I have to play it.
Which is even more awesome. No, that's a great gift.
Really.
But yes, everybody could feel that joy that you had felt when you received your advance copy by pre-ordering the album right now. And everyone can find that through your Bandcamp, I believe is the place to do that,
You can find it there. Yeah, they're linked. Yeah.
which is at coffinprick.bandcamp.com. That's where people can go ahead and start the fun with this new album.
Yes.
Uh, and your other releases are streaming everywhere, wherever people get their music, right?
Except for Spotify. Yeah.
Okay, minus
Record,
Spotify.
this new record will be on Spotify, but that wasn't really my choice. But I, yeah.
So sort of on Spotify, but you know what? Expand your palette. We'll say that.
Yeah.
And check out some other spots.
Go straight to the, if you're gonna buy something, go straight to a label, buy it from the source. Spotify doesn't pay anybody, Apple doesn't pay anybody. Uh, I understand it's the parlance of the world. We got to keep ourselves involved. But if you can help it, if you're gonna buy a record, go directly to the label. You know, even if you're gonna buy the digital, uh, just buy it from the label. That's my only word on that. Um,
Okay. And yeah, whatever the correct URL is for Temporal Drift will be linked below whatever you listen to this on. Um,
can I also
and
plug the shows?
oh yeah, no, please,
That okay?
absolutely.
I just feel like I want to say this for whoever's listening.
Yeah,
I am
please.
going to play a record release gig here in Los Angeles at a place called 2220 Arts. The night the record this is released, Friday, May 16th. It's going to be the Coffin Prick full band uh, with Aaron Olson, Jenny Hirons, Kate Kennan, Alejandro Salazar Dyer, and Cole Berliner. And then I will, and the opening group is the Les Sewing Sisters, who must be seen to be believed. They're the most amazing group, totally captivating. I almost exclusively play with them. And then in July in America, I will be on tour with a band called Cap'n Jazz, who are some friends from Chicago that asked me to open some shows. I don't know if I'll go over with their audience, but July will be in Chicago, doing a show of my own in Louisville, Washington D.C. with Cap'n Jazz, Philadelphia, Boston, and two shows in New York, two at Warsaw, two shows in New York, two shows in Chicago at Talia Hall.
A lot of big stuff coming up. And everyone can stay up to date with all those updates and tours and all that good stuff by following you on Instagram, right? That's the best place to stay up to date with all this stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that's a accurate. Yeah.
And that's at Coffin Prick on Instagram to stay up to date with everything. And that's amazing that you're playing with Cole. Shout out to Cole, and please go listen to his interview if you haven't already, or even if you have.
Oh, I didn't know there was.
Um,
Great.
yeah. Now, Ryan, I was gonna say that wasn't directed towards you because I know that you listen to every episode that I've done, all these
Of
200
course.
plus.
Playing coy.
And I do appreciate it. I like the cat and mouse game, but yeah, please go listen to Cole's interview. He's a wonderful musician. And do we have anything else to promote?
No, not really. Not that I can think of at the moment. Yeah, I mean, just Temporal Drift. I'd like to give them a plug. Check out the music on their label. L'Oreally's Denude, Hiroshi Hashimura, Yuma Abe, Takuro Okada. Yeah, there's Sachiko's music. Just they're releasing really incredible music, and I want to give a some praise to them because they've given me great tribute, and I'm very honored to be included amongst the music that they've released. I am the only actually non-Japanese musician on the label, so it's kind of an interesting distinction.
That's awesome. Yeah, Temporal Drift. Um, and once again, that's May 16th, Loose Enchantment via Temporal Drift. And yeah, keep up to date on Instagram for all those nice dates of what's going on. And it's going to be a good release. I can feel it. I can feel it, Ryan.
Fingers
Um,
crossed.
no, we don't even need that. It's just pure energy being
All
thrown
out
at
the
it.
window. Forget it.
Get it out of here. But you know, keep it close by just in case. Uh, anyways, Ryan, I really appreciate it, sir. I'm gonna stop recording this and I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Thank you, Jacob.